Yo, so welcome to just kind of like the intro stream for the live challenge series that I'm going to be doing every Friday. I know I missed the time slot that I had kind of set up for the schedule, but this week has been a little bit hectic, so I don't anticipate being on schedule Saturday or Sunday, but streams and videos will be out. Also, stuff to look forward to next week. In addition to live streaming for the schedule, I'll also over the weekend be editing and making videos, 10 to 15-minute videos for each content category for each day. So, in addition to the streams, I'll also upload a video. I'm not going to set a hard deadline, I'm just going to say, before the end of the day is out, kind of long form video is going to be published in addition to the stream. So kind of keep that on your horizon, on your radars, in terms of what to expect. I think what I'm going to try and do is distill everything that I'm talking about in these streams and then, incorporate some challenges that I may have been facing throughout the week into a video and kind of present it from a like storytelling narrative kind of angle, at least from the outset, and then we'll kind of just see what that looks like, if I like the vibe, if you guys like the vibe, that kind of thing. So that's what you guys can look forward to in this upcoming week, and then in beyond, I'll start releasing some shorts, which will be a little bit more entertainment focused. But back to kind of what today's all about is introing the challenge section, or the challenge Friday, the live challenge day, right? So on a typical Friday, I would dedicate this time to interacting with you guys, doing any challenges that you guys vote on, doing them live. I'll kind of give you guys some bounds of what I think is acceptable, and then we'll kind of just go from there. But if I'm not having any input from you all, then what I'll also do is have a backup challenge that we'll kind of fall back on if nothing's really getting generated from engagement with followers or subscribers or whatever. I guess it's probably a good idea to also mention that like I'm not just streaming from whatever the platform is that you guys are watching this from. I'm concurrently streaming YouTube, Twitch, and Kick, and I'll probably add some other platforms. But I'll also need to kind of put my handles and start making that a little bit more visible, just so that people know that there are lots of different channels to access my content. So I know for this week, there were some days where my multi-stream didn't automatically engage the YouTube stream, and so I had to download the videos and then upload them as like the streams as videos to YouTube, and I'll also have to do similar things for Twitch and Kick, because some days all the streams were good and live and was sending to those channels, and other days it wasn't. So um, what I'll try to do is by Sunday of the week have all the streams kind of uploaded to their respective channels, and so you can kind of chronologically go through things. I think that kind of makes the most sense. But for today, as I talked yesterday, I was going to kind of dive a little bit deeper into planning versus procrastination. And as I was kind of thinking of this topic, I was thinking about, do I have any kind of funny or insightful stories about how I've been susceptible to transitioning from planning and doing things that I think are prudent and kind of setting myself up to make smart moves in the future, um, susceptible to that kind of transitioning into procrastination. And well, I had a couple of stories. I didn't really find any of them compelling, and maybe I can think on this a little bit more. And actually, that's maybe the direction that I'll take the video that I'll upload on this upcoming Friday. It'll cover this, but kind of in a more cohesive manner. But I think kind of the essence of what I'm trying to get to is that for a lot of people, or maybe just myself, sometimes we can get caught up in thinking about everything that can go wrong or solving problems that we think we'll encounter later down the line. And that kind of approach to problem solving, to tackling challenges, to setting out and trying to accomplish goals, I think is good, right? But there's a little bit of nuance because sometimes it can actually distract you from what ultimately is going to get you closer to your goal, which is execution, right? And that ties into, what is loose, right? Live under. I'm blanking on the I again. This is live under something like intense, consistent execution, right? So execution is the name of the game. Execution is how you get closer to your milestone. Action is the only thing that's measurable, right? You can plan for days, for months, for years, but if you never take action, you never actually get closer to your goals. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to tease out here is thinking about where we draw the line between planning and execution, and where the marginal benefit of spending additional time planning starts to diminish and actually become a net negative in terms of actually accomplishing our goals. And so I actually posited some of people screaming outside. I don't know. Posited some people asking them what they thought the distinction was. And I got a couple of interesting answers. I think one of the interesting answers was kind of breaking tasks, challenges down into ones with deadlines and ones without deadlines. Um, and so the takeaway from that was when you have a goal or a task with a deadline, um, you need to come up with not necessarily arbitrary, but you need to come up with a line of demarcation at some point over that time horizon between the moment you get the task or the moment you conceive of the goal and the actual deadline that it needs to be accomplished by. You need to come up with um, a period in time that you think more than what. Let me think about how I'm going to phrase this. You need to come up with basically, you need to figure out how much time you want to assign to planning and how much time you want to assign to execution. And you need to strictly adhere to that, because if you do things right, once you exceed that time allocated for planning, any additional time that you spend planning and not executing hurts you, because you're eating into the time that you have already allocated towards execution. So basically, you're burning the candle from both ends, right? You're planning, and then also the amount of wiggle room that you have to be executing is also diminishing at the same time. So I'll come up with like a more eloquent way to phrase that, but hopefully that kind of gets across the idea where um, we need to figure out where the line of diminishing marginal return is between planning and execution. And then also like in the just to kind of briefly touch on tackling goals or challenges that don't have deadlines. Um, I think that is where things become a little bit more arbitrary, because it might be acceptable to you to not be making progress. So that kind of flips the crux of the issue from being time constrained to being almost like emotion or some kind of intrinsic metric constrained by some like intrinsic metric, right? So like the point at which you start feeling less confident in your ability to actually accomplish your goals um, should dictate where you draw that line between how long you're going to spend planning and how long you're going to spend executing, right? For somebody that maybe they want to get really good at crocheting, right? But it's not something that um, it's super pressing or super urgent, and it's just kind of a hobby that they're interested in. They're going to be a little bit more lenient with uh, how they kind of set up themselves for success. So if they're designing a system, let's say they're making a routine and they're saying, hey, okay, I'm going to spend X amount of hours crocheting, yada, yada. They do it. in one sense, they may not even really need to spend that much time planning because the enjoyment comes from the process, right? And so I think that's kind of the beauty of the problem is that, um, and I don't know if this is Occam's razor or some other um, phenomenon, but a lot of times the simplest solution is the best solution. Um, and so when you don't have a deadline, sometimes you don't really even need to spend that much time planning. Um, but in terms of like giving you guys something that you can take away and apply to situations that will require a significant amount of planning, like let's say you have a big goal or a complex goal that you could kind of break down into smaller pieces. I think there are two main points that I kind of want to drive home. I say in general, like you probably only want to spend no more than a third of the total amount of time that you have to accomplish the task. You probably don't want to spend more than a third of that time planning, right? So that leaves you with a little over half the remaining time, or a little over half of that total time to dedicate to execution, to problem solve whenever you encounter obstacles, all those kinds of things. And then secondly, when you're actually in that planning stage, how what kind of protocol are you guys going through to um, kind of make things streamline and reduce the burden of like engaging in things that may not be fruitful, right? So like let's say I have a problem. I don't know. Let's say I'll just pull from real life, right? So I'm working on Workhorse AI, productivity app, and I set a hard deadline that I wanted to roll out, a skeleton UI and backend and have everything work by March 31st. And that was my deadline that I set at the beginning of March. And so in doing that, I kind of broke down the task. Okay, what things do I need to do? Okay, I'm going to dedicate a week to building up the back end. I'm going to dedicate a week to kind of getting a wireframe UI on the front end. I'll dedicate a week to making sure that there's encryption, and we kind of establish some kind of middle end where we're authenticating users that are accessing the UI, and then making calls to the API on the back end, making sure that people can't easily corrupt or get into the database or the back end, those like kind of cybersecurity issues. So you kind of break things down into stages and then you go from there. But even when you're breaking things down, I think it's even more useful to go kind of a step deeper and look at best and worst case scenarios. So if you kind of imagine a tree, right? You have, at the beginning, you have the root, it's the start, and then everything kind of branches out with, every subsequent decision that you make. Or let's just say outcome, right? So, wherever you end up is dependent on a bunch of other outcomes, and it could either be a success or failure. If you just look at the best case scenario and the absolute worst case scenario, so literally the best case scenario is the scenario where every single outcome just works out for you and is positive and you don't run into any challenges. Then you look at the worst case scenario where at pretty much every stage, whatever you think could go wrong does go wrong. um, I think this is untested, but I suspect that everything in between is going to be some kind of gradient between those two kind of extreme end use or end cases. So if you kind of trace the best possible and the worst possible, you don't need to spend time tracing everything in between, because when you get to that point where something goes wrong, you just refer back to the worst case scenario, and so you don't need to like rehash things. Um, I don't know if I've necessarily articulated that sufficiently, but I think just even sitting down and kind of putting that out through the stream, and then also thinking on it a little bit more and editing that video for next Friday, I'll hopefully come up with something a little bit more digestible. But that's kind of the main idea, is that you want to come up with a threshold that beyond which you are transitioning from planning towards, consistent execution. Um, Hopefully that's kind of intriguing, and I would love to hear like what your guys' takes are on, where that almost arbitrary line between planning and procrastination is drawn, and then also what kind of techniques or things that you guys do to make sure that you're on track and you don't end up procrastinating from overthinking, right? So I think that's gonna pretty much be it for today's stream. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Stay juicy. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. Um, Based on how I kind of envision things and set things up, Saturday will be kind of a live Q&A. Or wait, no, Saturday is gaming and strategy. So the idea is stream some kind of game, some kind of gameplay, and then kind of talk with you about how skills that you develop while gaming, um, problem solving, persistence, um, mental toughness, mental resilience, um, ability to be adaptive, all those things can translate into other facets of life. So that's kind of in a perfect world what Saturdays would be. I'm not sure how I'm really gonna tackle this Saturday stream since I don't think I have that many people tuning in. So maybe I'll just kind of come up with I'll role play and I'll role play as like a viewer and think put myself in a viewer's shoes. What problems might I be having, or questions I may have for myself, and then kind of answer those for tomorrow through that kind of intro stream. And then Sunday is going to be the weekend review, so we'll kind of go over. I don't know if I'll give you guys the full, morning, night routines. That's kind of the secret sauce. I'm joking, but I'll go over kind of my routines, how my adherence has been for this week, and then how I kind of track progress, and then what kind of systems I have in place for optimizing routines and schedules and that kind of thing. Which I've actually put a good amount of work and thought into. So I started doing that stuff probably early sophomore year of high school, and I've just kind of been refining the process over. It's been probably 8 years, 6, 8 years. So I'll be kind of excited to show that off. I'll figure out how to kind of set everything up on the laptop because I'm still operating off the laptop. So once again, apologies for the stream quality. Although I know things weren't 4K to begin with, but there's definitely been a little bit of a downgrade. That said, SSD should be coming in this weekend. So once that comes in, I'll pop it in the computer and then we'll be good to go. All my files will be gone, but I can just kind of reset stuff and use some kind of cloud storage to prevent that issue again. So yeah, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Looking forward to engaging with you tomorrow. Stay tuned.